you know we bring positive vibes right here from Farmers Media. And it's a very interesting day today, as always. Somebody asked me, all my days are interesting. Yes, brilliant. Because we are in a scenario where we are talking to people who are producing, making sure that we are eating. So we are talking to people. We would like to know where you're watching us from, what is happening on your farm. Thank you for having tuned in again. And today, a friend of mine called me yesterday and asked me, "How come you never talk about my products in your shows?" And I asked him, and we will be sharing much more information about it as we go. We will also invite you as farmers to come and view and see and tell us what you think about these varieties. Brilliant. So as we jump into the discussion of today, is organic farming possible with the current climatic conditions? It is a hot topic. It's a hot topic that we will be discussing. My co-host Amichilewa Kidogo, who will be joining me, Titus Nakel, and we'll be discussing something very interesting again with him in terms of what does organic mean. He's an agronomist and he'll be an extension officer, which apparently I was told that not all extension officers are agronomists. I don't know how. Probably they also be veterinary doctors as well. So thank you for having tuned in. We want to jump into the discussion and let us know again what do you think about the climatic conditions and actually growing your crops organically. Is it possible? So just as a way of discussing this, what first of all we need to ask ourselves very many things. What is organic farming? What are the challenges? What are the pros? What are the cons of organic farming? So organic farming is a very interesting discussion here, as we've always been thinking about, and what this means basically for organic farming is that it refers to agricultural production that shuns synthetic materials, the range of pesticides, fertilizers, growth hormones, feed additives, pesticides, and it heavily relies on organic materials such as compost manure, composted animal waste, and plant residues, crop rotation, and natural ways of plant protection. You can imagine growing your crops without going to the agrovet. Wow, interesting. But it, yes, it's very interesting. Yes, imagine growing your crops organically without going to the aggregate. Wow, is that really even possible? Hey, yeah, I think to some extent it's very possible. To some extent, I think it's very possible. However, we are also living in the tropics, and we have to understand some basic things. If you're living in the tropics, it means that you have to face a lot of challenges, myriads of challenges when it comes to pest management. There are different ways of doing it. Some people have said that it is cheaper to grow crops organically, and I always ask myself, is it because you are growing it? Is growing it organically a solution to you not using a lot of money on pest management? Are there other alternatives of doing this? So for me, what I do, I wouldn't like us to do is that I wouldn't like us to think that growing organically is the only option. No, to reducing use of pests. I mean, you're reducing money, the money that you use on buying farm inputs. No, because if you're to do that, that means that then you're also not doing the right thing. Because we also have organic pesticides. We also have integrated pest management, which we'll be discussing that during the show. And so you have to be very objective, first of all. Why are you growing crops organically? There must be a reason. You must also have a very niche market to be able to make sure that you are satisfying this market. You also need to know so many indications in terms of when will my produce be ready, what is the size, what is the yield, the expected yield. All these things are very important. And so, as we discuss this today, let us ask ourselves some really hard questions. Organic farming, what does it aim to achieve? What does it, what does it help with? If you're going to sell your produce, are you going to sell your produce in the same markets as those that have been grown using synthetic additives, pesticides, and stuff like that? What are your expectations in the market? What is your pricing model? Things like water requirement, things like soil fertility. Remember, some basic things will still remain. The soil has to be fertile, whether using inorganic or organic, synthetic, whatever those things are. The soil has to be really, 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 really healthy. And hence the reason why we wanted to discuss this topic. And remember that as we discuss this, we'll be telling you much more about soil health, especially when you're growing organically, and what are the requirements that you need to make sure that this is a success story. So as we tackle this, we are not saying that it is not possible. We're not saying it is very possible. We want to really brainstorm and think about this very, very consciously, especially in the fight for food security, in the fight for in the way that we're discussing, we're thinking through about how to create more jobs, stuff like that. It's very important for us to make sure that we are getting this objectively. Thank you. So, as we discuss this, let us know in the comment section if you can. If you're also watching us from Africa Farmers Club, if you're on YouTube, leave your comments as well. We'll be sharing that later on in the show. And again, those who are watching us, this is the Farmers Breakfast Show, and we are discussing, is organic farming possible with the current climatic conditions, the drought that we're facing, shortages in water supply in our farms as well, the costs of fertilizer, again, cost of in-farm inputs, but again, we also have to ask ourselves, if I'm growing organically, what is the potential of the yield? Which market was as we've said earlier, we also have to have a very interesting market, a niche market that appreciates the value of you having fought the urge of using pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, inorganic farm inputs. So they also have to give you a thumbs up by also understanding that they need also to pay some premium price when it comes to that. But if we have to ask ourselves, first of all, is organic farming sustainable? Is organic farming sustainable? But before that, what we will do is that we will talk about some pros and cons, pros and cons of organic, of growing crops organically. So again, just as a way of repeating this, organic farming is based on the idea of the farming being carried out without using any synthetic. I want to repeat that: any synthetic agricultural chemicals, any input that is not organic. You know, things like pesticides, not limited only to that, pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, you know, all that, and the other thing is that also you cannot have GMO crops used. So some of the things, some of the questions, some of the questions that I keep on receiving when I talk about this topic is that, can you grow seeds that are hybrids, that are GMO, and grow them organically? Does it make sense? Really? Does it really make sense? Can you do that? So that means that we also have to understand what are the technicalities, because some of these hybrids are also based on the fact that when you grow them, then they also need specific boosters to make sure that these things are working. Yes. So this is very important. It's a very important discussion that we are having today. Share your comments, your thoughts, your ideas as well, to get to know much more about this. So, what are the benefits of organic farming? And are farmers willing to pay a higher price for producing this food through organic farming? That's the things that we need to look ourselves. We have to look at numbers, numbers. They say numbers don't lie. So we have to ask ourselves really interesting questions. Is what we are doing the right thing? Is it possible? What numbers are we looking at, by the way? And so this is a very critical thing that we are discussing today. Remember to share this discussion. You can also give us your inputs as well. Now, I want us to look at the advantages of organic farming. First of all, we'll look at the dangers later. Me, I'm team positive. So obviously, we'll have some challenges, we'll have some disadvantages, but we'll look at them as we continue. So number one, for those who fear GMO, the advantage of growing organic farming is that no more GMOs, genetically modified organisms in your crops, in your food. So here we are talking critical things. We're talking critical things in that we are saying that now this it helps on number one costs that make organic farming efficient. It saves on that. Again, the risk of mutations, that is dangerous changes in the DNA. So they say we're not very sure about this. We'll be talking about GMOs, by the way, next week. Next week, I'll be talking about GMOs. We'll have somebody from the Kenya Biosafety uh, organization who will be telling us so much more about the hula baloo and the hype that was there a few weeks and months back, and where we are right now and the realities. I know they've been meeting at Sawela to clarify some of these issues. We've had a discussion with some of them as well. We'll be telling you much more about that. The next advantage, the next advantage is basically soil protection. For those who know me and who know our farmers, we are very keen on soil health. Very critical component. Very critical component is soil protection. So soil protection is, what does soil protection mean? So when those who were listening to us yesterday in the discussion about carbon credits. We had this discussion yesterday. Remember to check our social media handles to see that what we were discussing. So a healthy soil is very important for good growth, as we said yesterday, and as we all know, because it's the base where we actually grow, where the seed sprouts, where any fertilizer is used, any water is put there. So the soil has to be really healthy to be able to receive this and take it up very quickly. And as we'll be taking you around in the next less than a month, I've been told not to do it very fast. In less than a month, we'll be taking you around virtually on our farm, what we are growing, what we are doing right now. So we'll be having some of our shows right outside the studio here, where we have our farm, our demonstration farm, courtesy of some of the partners that we've been having. You will see the importance of soil health. So organic farming gives added protection to the soil. Yes, it gives added protection to the soil. And why important? Why is this important? It is really important because higher soil fertility means higher yield. So now that is the point. That is one of the points that we should be discussing here. Remember, we've said that one of the things that we are facing that is really challenging, one of the things that is really challenging is the fact that we're doing what? We want to get good yields because we're doing agribusiness. So whether you're doing organic or inorganic inputs, we need to ask ourselves, what are my yields looking like? Remember, we're not doing organic because we are saving on the cost of inputs. No, 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 no. We are doing organic because of specific reasons, and not just the advantages. There must be some reasons why we're doing, which we'll be discussing later on in the show here. So so soil protection, very key. Why is it important, and how does organic farming do this? It basically removes the risk of having harmful chemicals such as pesticide, herbicide, fertilizers from the soil. So use of this is actually avoided in the farming process. This protects the soil and its fertility in the long run. So you can imagine that it protects the soil and fertility in the long run. So this is an advantage. That's a very strong advantage of why you need to do organic farming. The next thing, I have a very interesting picture of somebody who, of a baby who's really, really happy. having eaten, I mean, it just reminds me of that image of a baby who has eaten organic food and is really excited about this. So, what does organic farming lead to? It leads to production of food products that are more nutritional. Why are they more nutritional? Because they consist of higher nutritional content as compared to products that have been using conventional methods of farming. Is that a reality? Is that true? Is it that, you know, there's so many, it's an open discussion, and that's why we're encouraging you to be able to counter, give us your thoughts about this, you know. But they're very interesting. Yesterday we were discussing something with one of my colleagues, actually three of my colleagues, that is John, Doris, and Titus, who Titus will be joining us a bit later. We were asking, is the use of inorganic fertilizers, does it alter the taste of food? Does it increase the sweetness, the sucrose, or the bricks content of fruits, or even just the normal taste of food? So that is a very interesting discussion. It's an open discussion. However, for me personally, I have seen the traditional foods. You know, the way you go to the village to visit your grandmother or your mom, or your, and you go to the farm and just harvest some nice ndumas, some arrowroots, some nice sweet potatoes, some cassava, some of this, you can even just feel like starting to eat them, because it still has the aroma, the original aroma of food. Like, for example, if you see if you test a tomato which hasn't been used, which no chemical has been used, anyway, that is very tricky if they've survived tuta absoluta. When you test it, it's just like, it gives you like an aroma just hits you. Very interesting. Some really good thing there. So the flavor and taste of food products produced through organic farming is also substantially better and more natural, without a doubt. Allow me to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue discussing about the healthy working and environment around the farms using organic. Allow us to go for a short break. Welcome back again to a Farmers Breakfast Show here in County 034, right here from our Farmers Media Studios, where we're discussing organic farming, whether this practicing organic farming is possible with the current climatic changes. We know the climate has changed dramatically. I mean, drastically. Oh, yes, one of those two. Yes, so it has really changed. And what we want to ask ourselves is it possible? Is it possible for us to do what we are doing uh, to get it right? Is it really possible for us to get it right? To understand that, yes, as we do this, we are doing the right thing. As we do this, we are making sure that it's a success story. If it's a success story, then fantastic. If it's not a success story, then we need to check ourselves so much. And before we went for a break, we were discussing some of the advantages, and the third advantage that we'd like to discuss is the working environment, the healthy working environment around our farms. It definitely organic farming means that we don't have any toxic chemicals, toxic inputs. We don't have anything toxic on our farm. As actually anything that will be with the farm will be chemical free. You know, This is because organic farming aims to stop using chemicals, which may create health problems among people working on the farm. Meaning, even when it comes to spraying, you can actually spray today and the re-entry. For those who are farming using synthetic, which we are not saying that you should stop, and we're not saying that it is not better than organic. We're just giving a discussion so that people can, because so that we can all make that wise decision. So basically, it means that when you're working and you're growing crops organically, that means that if you're spraying today or you're using integrated pest management systems to help reduce the pest infestation, the re-entry period is probably even a day. These other times, sometimes the re-entry period is like 3 4 days. So you see, those are the things that we are looking at and asking ourselves: is it possible? Resistance to pests and diseases. This is a really how do I say this? There's a really thin line between the truth about resistance to pests and diseases versus the cost of actually doing this. So the benefits of growing plants in a healthy soil with adequate pH and nutritional status help strengthen the immune system of the plant. You know, we cannot run away from the fact that the soil is a very important component in our success as farmers. So if you don't have healthy soils, you cannot grow anything. If you don't have healthy soils, whether you use synthetic or organic, you still mess up. You still you can't hack. You cannot hack doing that. So this way, what happens is that plants produced from organic farming have a higher resistance against pests and various diseases without use of pesticides or genetically modifying them. Meaning, what are we saying? We are saying that when you're growing crops organically, it means that the pests, you can be able to manage these pests. However, we'll talk about the disadvantage of this or the reality of this later on in the show when we talk about integrated pest management. Uh, when it comes to the resistance to pests and diseases, it means that the soil is not as healthy enough. So what happens that plant resistance in organic farming is created by natural substances such as rhubarb, such as nimbacid, let's call it nimbacid, like neem is one of the things which gives crops a more thickened cell wall, so making it strong against pests and diseases. So that is the angle with which when we're saying resistance to pests and diseases. So you also need to ask yourself, if you're growing crops organically, what else are you adding on the soil? What else are you adding to the crop so that it can become resistant? And as we keep on talking about this, we have a product that has worked for us really well. It is also working for other farmers, quite a number of farmers, which will be sharing some of these things. I'll talk about which we'll be talking about this in the next event, even the next point, the next advantage. Fertilizers are made naturally and on site. That's a very interesting point. But just going back to the healthy soil, so we have a product. We have a product that we have been using, a natural grown product. So we have some of the ideas that are actually coming up on the screen. We can see using green leaf manures. How to succeed in this. Crop rotation is one of the ways of growing crops organically. We also have animal husbandry. We also have fertilizers that are organic, which we'll be talking about one of the things. We also have some of my good friends. These are earthworms that help in loosening the soil, making sure that the uh, we normally have some fluid that comes from earthworms when you put it in a compost, and this on its own really helps the soil to breathe. It gives the soil opportunity to be able to release the air, the bad air, and so that nutrients, water can be able to penetrate through. So these are just some of the advantages that we can be able to see that are coming with organic way of growing crops. So this product that I was talking about is called cocoa. So cocoa fertilizer is a fertilizer that is used to be able to reduce the alkalinity and as well as acidity of the soils to make sure that our pH is at a balanced rate. You get? So it means that then we get adequate pH and other nutritional status, which helps now the crop itself develop some immune system so that any pest and disease that attacks it is actually protected. So I would advise you to try it out. Try Cocoa fertilizer, which is the number one soluble water. Sorry, it's a granular fertilizer. It's the first granular water soluble fertilizer, which you can be able to get. We'll be sharing some of this information, how to get this during the show. But you can follow at Cocoa East Africa on Facebook and at Cocoa EA on Instagram to get to understand much more about cocoa fertilizers. So now, opportunity to grow variety of crops. This is a very interesting point. This is our advantage number 6. Advantage number 6 is conventional farming is limited only to producing a limited variety of crops, which to some extent is very true. But when it comes to organic, remember when coming to organic, you can do so much. Organic, it means you can grow. Let's just work with tubers first. There is ndoma. So ndoma is called arrowroot. Yes, you can have potatoes, sweet potatoes, cassava. You can see that just that on its own, you have your breakfast really well served. Just that organically. You go to the farm, you get some, and you eat. You share with your neighbors also. You take some to the market as well. But remember, when you harvest, you have to protect and have your food at least. I always tell farmers this: when you harvest, try and store for your food for some time. Don't just sell everything and have money. Then you have to go back and buy the same food at much higher prices. So if you're harvesting tomatoes, try and preserve these tomatoes. You can put them in the freezer. If you don't have a freezer, you can sun dry them, pack them in airtight bags, so that you don't need to. You sell tomatoes on Monday, on Saturday in the market. On Tuesday, then you go to the market and get, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So those are some of the things to look at. So when you're doing organically, it means that you have an opportunity to actually grow much more, much more. So organic farming has close to limitless capacity of producing a diverse variety of crops, which can then be sold in the local market for a higher price. The price there we don't know. We'll talk about the price later on. Why is this important? Because this is because you are bringing a variety of crops into the local market. So let's go to beans. You grow quite a number of beans. Beans that that cannot be attacked by pests throughout. Storing of these beans will be easy. Remember, we have some of our friends who are doing storage of cereals, which we'll also be sharing about them later on in the show. So this is very important for you to understand that then it is what? It is helping in doing what? In reducing the costs. Because then you have variety. You have maize, you have sorghum, you have other cereals, you have, yeah, I'm even actually talking just smaller areas. I'm not talking about the big wheat farms, and just at a farm level, an eighth of an acre going to 3, 4, 5 acres probably at most. But even if you just focus on 1.5 acres, even 1 acre, what can you grow there? We have cassava, we have bananas, we have arrowroots, we have sweet potatoes, we have quite a number. And these crops, even when after harvesting, whatever plant residue, plant waste that remains, they can be cut and even fed to animals because they can eat directly. But some of the crops that we growing synthetically are dangerous. In terms of managing the use of pesticides and herbicides and insecticides. I mean, we have to really be very, very, very careful. We are living in the most dangerous times the earth has ever been in. So we have to ask ourselves really hard questions. Are we doing the right thing for our own health? And number seven, which is one of the most critical aspects of it, is climate friendly. Organic farming is much more climatic friendly than anything else. It doesn't require petroleum based fertilizers and chemicals. No, it doesn't. I mean, for sure, it doesn't. You know. So what happens that when you're growing organically, one of the biggest advantages is that now the plants are produced by organic farming help to store carbon, thus reducing the greenhouse effect. So yesterday we talked about the GHGs, the greenhouse gases, and the emission of carbon. And we were told very with our expert, who is Mika Mitoko. He was very categorical in saying some of these particular aspects. We have less fuel that is utilized as organic farming, and that requires more work from animals and manual labor. So you see, you're also reducing on so many other things. For example, something that one of our good friends and our viewers, Thomas Okello, is very passionate about is the aspect of doing what? Of making sure that we have less manual input. Less manual input, because what it means that we're doing a lot of cover crops. We have njahi, we have beans, we have ndengu, we have all this that actually help restore the nitrogen content. These are natural nitrogen fixers. So that means that with all this knowledge uh, that farmers are going to get, then it means that we're actually going to preserve our climate. And when we preserve our climate, it means that we're not just saying we're going to grow grasses and all that. Yes, even grasses will play an important role. However, you'll find that there's push and pull techniques in fighting some of the harmful pests that attack our crops, especially maize. There's natural fixers, nitrogen fixers, things like cover crops, beans, as we mentioned. So this means that this way, growing organically, the plants also help support our ecosystem. It helps our ecosystem and around it. And what does it do? Then it creates what we have always been thinking about, the biodiversity in our ecosystem. Very interesting point there. Now, what about the future? What about the future? The future is has to be very friendly. Our environment has to be very friendly. We have to breathe fresh air. We have to grow crops in healthy soils. And sustainability is important. Sustainability is important. So, what does organic farming do to support this? We've seen that it has helped in terms of the biodiversity of our ecosystem, which is very critical. Even when you want to do just normal farming, even when you go and visit a farm, even when you go and look for a farm to buy, you have to look at the soil health. I mean, tusidanganyane, we have to do that. So that means that the biodiversity of our ecosystem, starting with the soil to the environment and crops, become a very big indicator of, are we doing the right thing? Is this farm healthy? I mean, you cannot go and buy a farm and you find all crops have withered, and then someone tells you, no, it's just because of water. No, no. That's not true. So what happens is that organic farming does not damage the soil, and it actually stops the process of desertification. Desertification. Why? Because then the soil has been the health of the soil has been put as key. Okay, so the low input and restorative process helps to preserve the land for future generations, and that means that, again, it brings at the point that sustainability is key. Because if you have land and you're using it for farming, and the next generation cannot use it, then why are you using it? Why do you even exist? You have to make sure that you're leaving healthy soils behind you. You're leaving healthy soils behind you, so that this food can continue growing, even for your own self. You know, so that means that the popularity of organic farming is set to increase. Yes, it is going to increase, especially if you're using right content. You're using the right fertilizers. Right inputs. And that way, then the only difference is that you're going to be one of those people who are taking part in it and watch others grow long term. Very interesting. What do you think? Let us know in the comment section about what this is. Now, what are the disadvantages of organic farming? What are the disadvantages of organic farming. Every good thing has its bad things. Every good thing has its bad things, but you should always ask yourself what is right, what is not right. So first of all, you don't get subsidies. We know that's a very hot topic in our country currently in terms of subsidies. People are giving each other ultimatums. Some of them are saying that we are just joking with the nature. Some of us cannot be shaken. Very interesting discussion that we're going to have here. So lack of subsidies is something that is very critical. And why this is because now farmers who are facing this do not get fertilizers at reduced prices. So you don't get fertilizers at reduced prices, it means that your cost of production is slightly higher. Really, we'll see that as well. So therefore, they have to take a huge hit when bad weather conditions come in, when the crops are damaged. Their crops as they are not compensated. Even even when it comes to insurance, insurance does not cover organic farming fully because you have to have build some protection around your crops for you to enjoy even some of these benefits. So that is, it means that sometimes you might lose everything. Okay. Some farmers also have shifted back to environmental negative conventional farming because of this aspect, and hence the reason why organic farming, the uptake is not as high. The other thing, organic farmers may also use organic pesticides and other organic chemicals. You will have to, especially in our country and in our region. Actually, we are living in the tropics. And when you're living in the tropics, it means that pest management, pest control is not as easy. Pest infestation is high. We've seen how locusts have come and invaded us. We've seen how one tuta absoluta enters a farm and causes havoc when all the other tomato farm plants are affected. We've seen fall armyworm coming in and eating our maize like the way we eat ice cream. It takes all of it. So those are some of the things to really understand that yes, you'll still have to use organic pesticides and organic chemicals as well, and even organic fertilizers. But are they cost effective? Those are some of the things to ask ourselves. Are these cost effective? So in some cases, you'll find that these organic chemicals contain lower concentrations as compared to the synthetic ones, meaning um, uh, in your fight to attack to solve the pest challenges, we are not able to understanding what this is all about. So this makes sure that we have to make sure that yes, if you're using pesticides, then it means that this you have to dig in a bit deeper in your pocket to get some of these really good chemicals so that you can be able to fight this pest, because these pests have come to be fought with stronger chemicals, stronger our soils have been depleted of most nutrients, so it means that you also have to fight properly. Okay. So sometimes they apply so frequently and becomes toxic for the crops. There is no confirmation about how these organic pesticides, insecticides, fungicides affect the soil, and how long they may reside in the soil, as they have not been properly tested over a long period of time yet. Okay, so those are the challenges when it comes to that. There's something that this is a very interesting topic because I'm being told that it's just like the story of the chicken that laid the golden egg. Uh, when they applied on frequently, does it become toxic to the crops? This organic chemicals. So that is a disadvantage. It's yet to be clarified. The other one is that we may not truly some of this organic production of food, which we have seen in some parts of people who are saying they're doing organically, they may not be truly organic at times. That's the sad bit about it. The sad bit about it is that due to the large scale of use of synthetic products, organically grown products may be grown on lands which already contain large amounts of synthetic chemicals. So if you're using land that if you're growing crops in the current land right now, how sure are you that that soil that was there previously was not did not have any chemicals in it, any harmful synthetic chemicals in it? So that is another thing that is a challenge, and that could affect the chances of getting your farm even certified. We have some farms that are certified organically. This defeats the true purpose of organic farming. Okay. The other one is lack of infrastructure. Most organic farms still operate under the ancient agricultural style, but the transportation of goods is industrialized, leading to a high carbon footprint. So this again gives us the which came first, the egg or the chicken. However, these issues then remain hidden under the banner of organic farming. So you're doing organic farming, but you transport with your normal petrol vehicle or diesel vehicle. Is there a gas vehicle? No. And what happens is the carbon footprint that you're leaving behind, the amount of smoke, amount of fuel burning, emission from your car is not organic. So then it beats some logic there. So, however, this is also at a much advanced stage that we're discussing. We're first of all asking ourselves, can we do it organically for our own health, our own consumption locally, before we go to the market? The other thing that we want to also touch on, and we'll be sharing probably some images of cocoa fertilizer that we've been having, is that it is slightly expensive, and I will tell you for sure, without a doubt, that it is slightly expensive to grow crops organically in the current climatic conditions. Okay, so the initial costs might be slightly lower. The soil over time becomes healthier with organic farming. Okay, so over time, but in the initial costs, some of the infrastructure that you have to put in, some of the prevention ways of managing pests and diseases might be a bit of challenges, because what you're doing is this: you're growing crops with protection. So, for example, if it is chilies, we talked to one of our friends earlier in the week, that is Geoffas Odipo, who actually mentioned about the false coding moth, even in chilies. We sometimes farmers say you use chilies to fight pests, but now we find pests going to eat chilies like ice cream. So so it's important to understand that you need to put sometimes probably a net, insect net, to prevent some of these pests entering the farms. You also have to put to practice to integrate. It's called integrated pest management. Things like sticky traps, the blue and yellow sticky traps, pheromone traps. You have to do so much to be able to make sure that you are managing pest infestation. So the initial cost of setting up an organic farm is not really pocket friendly for most farmers. Hence the reason why this becomes a very big disadvantage. Now, the next disadvantage is knowledge intensive farming. My friends, farming organically needs you to have a lot of knowledge. A lot of knowledge. And when we talk about farmers, most of the farmers being illiterate, it's not that they don't know how to read and write. We are illiterate when it comes to scientific knowledge. And this scientific knowledge is not being given to us that we can grow organically. This scientific knowledge is actually being given to us in a way that we cannot manage this very well. So when it comes to this, then it means that we have to really be very, very, very careful when it comes to organic farming, and even just the costs that are incurred there. So organic farming requires vast knowledge, and to carry out organic farming, it's really important to know what you're doing, how you're doing, and stuff like that. We have one of my friends who joined us, as I mentioned earlier. He has joined us to talk to us about some of these things. I don't know if Titus, you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you.
Titus, I don't know if you can hear us. I think Titus can
Yes, I
even
can
walk into
hear
the
you.
studio. He's not far. Yes, so let's continue as we wait for him to walk in. He's trying to use a cookery method of being on air. Uh, Yeah. So as we say this is very important. So knowledge is very important, and you'll find that most of our current agronomists, most of the current extension officers are not yet really fully equipped with the knowledge on how to manage crops organically. Yeah. So this is a very interesting thing. And as we go for a break, we want to see some of the things. We'll come back with uh, th- 3 or 4 final disadvantages of growing this. We'll also ask ourselves quite a number of things that we're doing. So allow us to go for a short break, and when we come back, we will have some information that very, very, very important for us to do this. Thank you very much for staying tuned in a Farmers Breakfast Show. Welcome back to Farmers Breakfast, and we are joined by my good friend here. He's a local politician, but that's a discussion of another day. That was Karim. Welcome.
Thank you.
Organic farming. Do you think it's possible?
Yeah.
How?
Thank you for the morning show that you
Yes.
have invited me.
Yes.
I want to introduce myself. My name is Titus Nakel and I come from Kajiado County. The topic of the day is very interesting and very useful to the farmers. What I can say about organic farming, it's very possible because organic farming, as we understand, it's using of the organic materials that we have.
Yes.
For example, when there is a farmer that is growing, let's say crops, and he has some livestock, you can use the manure of the livestock as the organic farming. And we have three types of organic farming, organic that you can put in the soil. We have the compost manure, we have the farmyard manure, and we have there are three: compost, farmyard, and the green manure. Yeah, the green manure. So
Yes.
this can be done with respect to what the farmer is intending to do in the farm.
Okay.
So what I can say is about organic farming is very possible because these facilities are there because animals we can get animals waste
Yes.
as the organic farming in the farm.
So now let me ask a question, which I think has to be a very critical question: is why is it that with the current climatic conditions, we know we have excessive heat, we have all these challenges that we are facing right now. How can farmers achieve this particular goal of doing it organically? Because I think that is the biggest challenge. Because we have pest infestation. Ask yourself, what is the organic way of managing fallen
Mhm. That is kind of tricky because of the current change
yeah, with the weather.
of the weather.
Yes.
Of the weather because currently we are experiencing some cold, and if you try to use the organic part of it, you might end up not having a successful turn up or a successful end on your production.
Yes.
But what I can say about the organic part of it, farmers can do something like crop rotation, of which sometimes it might be limited because of the size of land.
Yes.
Another thing that farmers can do, they can do shift cultivation. For example, if there is a disease, certain disease in the soil,
Yes.
or there are certain crops who are in that particular place,
Yes.
you can shift that part of the land that you are plowing, and you can plow another place.
Okay.
So those are some of the things that the farmers can do to achieve because of the current climate change, which has brought a lot of things in the globe.
Very interesting. So when you talk about that, and my question now comes in: how can farmers know this information? Where do farmers get this information? On how to actually do it organically.
Most of the farmers, number one, they don't get a lot of information, and if they get information, they don't get it accurately.
Okay.
So our challenge come to us, the learned generation, who are supposed to go and visit this farm.
Yes.
And tell that the way they should do, the process they should take to have this thing being a successful, and show them the ways they can achieve and the ways they can do so that they can get the organic factor coming in and helping the farmers in a very greater way.
So now let me ask you a question: where do when you went through the training, when you went through your training, did you see any organic way of managing crops? And why is it that we have too many agrovets and too many agrovets? Because I think the presence of too many agrovets, it means that there's very little organic going on.
Yeah,
Yes.
very little.
Yes. Do you think that the extension officers, the current extension officers or agronomists, do they have that in mind in terms of not using pesticides and only using chemicals?
Number one, for the world that we are living in,
Yes.
we live in the world of rush. Everybody is
Take it.
So they are bringing this in organic fertilizers.
Yes.
Because of time,
Well,
so that they can.
when you talk about time, what is that time that you mentioned?
The time that I'm talking about,
Yes.
is they want when they grow something, it harvests very quickly. They don't have that. They don't have that to wait that
Patience in
period.
waiting, yes.
Yeah, they don't have that period for it. For example, if tomatoes can take 3 months,
Yes.
they use the inorganic factors so that they can take 1.5 months, so that they can get money easily.
So it's a rush for getting money,
Yeah.
that is pushing people towards away from organic.
Yeah.
But now let me ask a very interesting question. You've seen the drought that is happening right now.
Mhm.
Would it make sense to grow the traditional cassava, or would we do that is drought resist? I mean that is relies on water, heavy irrigation, or farmers can adopt to the new technologies of using these other format in terms of, like, for example, inorganically, for example, getting the new varieties of cassava that is resistant to diseases and is susceptible. It's actually drought tolerant.
That is very interesting because, number one, if you tell a farmer to have that patience of waiting, it will be very difficult. So you just find most of the people, most of the agronomists and agricultural sector, they advise these people to use the inorganic fertilizers. Because, for example, tell me a farmer, tell me a farmer that will grow his crops. For example, he want to make a green manure. He grows his let us take the example of beans.
Yes.
When they are in the leafy parts, and then he destroyed all of them, have that period for decomposition, you find it very difficult for a farmer to do that. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Those who are watching us, this is a very interesting discussion that we're actually breaking it down, and we're discussing some very interesting discussion here in terms of organic farming, whether it's possible or not possible, and how can we do it and get it right. That is the most crucial bit of it, is can we get it right from the beginning. Getting it right is very important. And before we went for a break, we had some discussion here. We had some disadvantages that we're looking at. And Titus, one of the disadvantages that we saw is that for you to actually grow organically, it means that there's more work that you have to do.
Yeah.
The land preparation, you have to do a lot.
A lot.
How do you prepare land for organic farming?
The way you can prepare land for organic farming is, number one, which type of organic farming do you want to use? Because if you are using the manure, it will not take time as the green, as the compost, and as the farmyard. So, number one, it depends on which type of organic factor do you want to put in your farm. Because, for example,
yes,
if you are using fertilizer,
yes,
not fertilizer, if you are using the organic manure from the animals,
yes,
it's very easy because you just plow and then you mix and then you can
yes,
plant immediately. But about the green manure,
yes,
you have to wait the crops first to grow. You cut the crop and then it decomposes in the soil, and then again you turn and turn, giving it a lot of time by the time it comes to be successful in the land. In the compost manure, you have
Yes.
to incorporate all those something like maize stalk,
Yes.
because there is that diagram structure
Yes.
of the maize stalk, the ashes, what. So you have to wait as you'll be changing day in, day out, until it will be okay. Then you go again and spray for the land.
Okay, very interesting. So that's a very interesting as you're watching, and those are the image that we wanted to share with you, and this image was basically what are the forms of organic farming. And then Titus can take us through that. So I don't know if our producer has that image, so we can be able to share this and just ask ourselves. What is this thing that we're not doing right? So as we do that, Titus, as we wait for the image to be put up, knowledge on this is very critical.
Yeah.
The knowledge is very critical of this, and again, there's also another disadvantage that we have also seen, and this disadvantage is that we are not sure whether it's organic. So my question is, can you sorry, we have the image up? Yes. So just take us through some of this.
I can see the first image is about veronomical compost, green leaf manure, crop rotation, manures, biofertilizers, animal husbandry, biomanagement. What I can simply say about these figures, about the crop rotation, I talked about it, and the about the crop rotation, I talked about it. the compost. I think that is compost manure, but
Yes,
I'm seeing some.
compost. Yes.
But I'm seeing some tape. That's tape worms.
Earthworms. Yes, the compost.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the manure of the cattle are very seen clearly.
Yes.
What I don't understand very well is about the biofertilizers, but we have to study about it.
Yes.
And animal husbandry is just the manure that animals produce.
Very interesting. So now, when you look at that, and the farmer is actually talking about now, you mentioned something very critical about green leaf manures.
Yeah.
So my question is, what about how do you distinguish which is the best one? Because sometimes you find that some of the manure, some of the leaves, and some of the crop residues, probably they have some what is it called? They have some harmful chemicals. Not chemicals. Sorry, they have some pests and diseases. How do you make sure that you're not transferring this back, or once it is rotten, all that is lost, is done away with?
Uh-huh. How to discover the best? For example, let me use a very good example. If you are using green manure, and in your green manure, in green manure you can put all varieties of crop, provided you turn again them to the soil again, and then you wait for decomposition.
All right.
So what I can add, what I can say, if you are, for example, you are using green manure.
Yes.
Green manure, and most of the farmers around the globe and around the country,
Yes,
they use the proteins because they are nitrogen fixation bacteria in the soil.
things like beans,
peas, those groundnuts, those things.
Yes.
So you find most of them, if they use green manure of the protein factor,
All right.
you, after they decompose and take that time, you find that lastly they will come and plant something like carbohydrates, like something like maize. Because if this green manure had some diseases,
Yes.
and you plant the same crop there,
yes,
there are easily transmission of this disease to this crop. So you counter, it's like a crop rotation.
Yes.
You crop rotate the manure that you have planted and the crop that you have planted.
So now, another question that comes in mind here. What are some of these crops that can be grown organically?
What I can advise farmers about the crop that can be grown organically.
Yes.
Number one, you have to look for the period, because you cannot tell a farmer or advise a farmer to grow maize as a crop, organic crop, because maize can take around 7 to 8 months, 9 months.
Yes.
Depending with the variety.
Yes.
So by the time he waits, and then green manure, it's a process, because you have to wait until they are leafy.
Yes.
And then that's the time that you cut them down.
Yes. Yes.
But if you plant something like beans,
yes,
that's a 3 months period, and then it will do very well, because you will not wait for a very long time compared to the maize and other factors.
Very interesting. And how you're putting it, I think it's a very interesting way. And also, watching us, you can hear the wealth of knowledge that we are actually discussing. And this is the knowledge that we said is a disadvantage when it comes to organic farming. If you don't have this knowledge, don't even make a mistake of starting to do organic,
absolutely,
because some of the things will suffer. There's a friend of mine who was saying that one of the things that they do is called chicken soup. So chicken soup, where they put the chicken manure in water for 7 days until the smell gets finished, and then that they use it now to spray crops. However, what is the form with which that manure is? Is it raw or decomposed? How do you know that this manure is decomposed? Because we talk about animal manure, but what stage? I've seen some farmers applying the raw manure in the crops. Sometimes you find stunted growth. What form should it be? Well decomposed, raw? Which one is more effective?
I think the most effective is when it is well decomposed in the soil. And if you give even a period of 1 week to 1 week, it will be thoroughly decomposed in the soil.
Okay, so depending on the crops. So now let me ask you, we have crops like maize. Maize is a heavy feeder. Onions are heavy feeders. Do you think we can be able to grow maize and onions and watermelons only organically? And what would be the yield looking like? What would the yield be like?
Because of we can do it. Because of the advantages of using organic manure. Yes. You can find that it is done, because I can say that our fathers and even you, because of your old age.
So you want to
no, you are old age than me. These things people were growing in the past.
Yes.
And these fertilizers were not there.
Yes.
But they were using the organic and they were doing very
But the
very well.
population was not that big.
Yeah, the population was not that big and the economy was at least low, better.
Yes.
And there was no this rush hour time of this generation that we are in,
The
because
rush hour.
the rush hour, because that is
Generation Z.
yeah the reason why these things came is because of everything. Even technology is about rush, everything is about
make
rush
fasten
to
things.
fasten things.
This fastening of things is not important.
It's important in some way and it's
Not
not
important. When it comes to farming, what do you think? Is it really important, or we just stick to how we were doing things in the past and doing it really well?
if it comes to farming,
Yes.
because of the disadvantages that these inorganic fertilizers have to the environment, to the everything.
Yes.
I think it's very important for us to go back to the place that we were in the past.
So we produce food organically,
Yeah.
to be able to benefit and get much more of that.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I don't know if you have any other details that you'd like to share about organic farming. There was something that we were discussing earlier on, and when it comes to now the organic farming, l- lack of using chemicals, synthetic chemicals. Do you think you can achieve the same yield or even better yields with organic farming?
That one, it's somehow tricky
Mm.
because number one,
Mhm.
the climate change have brought one effect.
Yes.
Because, for example, even the pests,
Mhm.
they don't have something to feed on. So if they find somewhere where there is a green place, they just come there definitely to look for food.
We saw that even cows were eating inside soil.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
because of the situation that we are in currently. So it's well advisable for farmers to use, but for the current place that we are in the world, I find it very difficult a bit.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
So it means that farmers have to, instead of overspraying, they can observe like safe use of pesticides and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Good information. For those who have been joining us, this has been Farmers Breakfast Show, discussing about organic farming, whether it is viable, whether it is profitable, whether we can be able to practice organic farming with the climatic changes. And we see that the climatic changes are crazy.
Yeah.
The heat is too much. You are telling me Ngaratek was very hot.
Very hot.
Until things are dry and we don't know why they're drying and they have a lot of water.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So those who are watching us, we are. I mean, as always, we want to make sure that, as you can see behind me, connect, learn, and grow. We want to make sure that you are actually benefiting from the content that we have, and we want also you to participate in making sure that this is a success. Yesterday's show was fantastic, and as we are doing this, we also are excited to see you giving us input. So also in the comment section, or you can follow me at Nasianin, just getting to understand and let me know what else would you like to see. If you have somebody who you'd like us to interview or to host in our show, please let us know, and let us know also how you're benefiting from this. We discussed quite a number of issues here, Titus. And what are your last words for farmers who would really try to do organic farming?
What I can say, what I can advise the farmers who we want to do organic farming. Number one, they have to have the first factor is patience. Because when you don't have patience,
Yes.
it will not do it. Because
Yes.
you have to have that patience of waiting the things. Another thing, I can advise farmers to use organic farming. Even if they use inorganic, they have a way of regulating them so that they cannot bring a lot of distraction to the environment and such a stuff. So it can be done, farmers. I can tell you that I went to that lady I told you in Maltisa.
Yes.
She purely does organic farming 100%.
Wow.
100%. She told me I don't need a fertilizer that is 99.9%. I tried to advise about the cocoa, but she said I want it 100%.
Fantastic. So it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible because
And she's doing an amazing job. So you say.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be sharing her story as well. Yes.
So it can be done, but it needs some timing and regulation on how to do, some knowledge of the crops that you are supposed to use. So a lot of things are to be connected before you start doing.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And yes, as you can see below us there's a cocoa fertilizer, which is the first number one granular water soluble fertilizer, which is recommended for you to be able to use to help balance the pH levels. Remember, when the pH levels are not balanced, the adequate pH, that means it is between 5.5 and 6.5. It means that your soil can be healthy, plus putting in the nutrients And also, as we're saying, go to visit at Kokoli East Africa to get to understand much more. And you can be able to even contact us whether you would like us to tell you and show you more about Kokoli fertilizer. This is a been an interesting morning. Really glad to have been with you this morning. And it's time for us to look at some of the social media posts and discussions. I don't know if our 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 producer has some of this. We have some comments that have been shared on Africa Farmers Club. The first one is a very interesting comment titled, "What do you think about this?" David Ndegwa, our senior in the industry, has actually said, forget about organic. Simply work on good agricultural practices, that is the gap, and you will be good. All foods are organic, and there is nothing like inorganic foods. But there is unsafe food where gap is in practice. Just ask yourself why EU is why the European Union, with its informed population, isn't asking for organic French beans as and snow bees from Kenya. Interesting, very interesting. They do not insist on organic, uh, but GAP, because they know organic is just a sales gimmick. Very interesting. The other comment there, I think he's removed the comment a bit early. Yes, the other comment is Wonder Products, all in one. Just read that first.
I'm very spectacle on this one, or it is because we are used to a long list of does and does not when correcting soil fertility. You must have been in this business. Kindly tag a farmer.
Very interesting, yes. And the next, we also have, I think, two other comments that we can be able to read. Um, Yes, so I read. So the next one is, you can approach this in two ways. If you do not find your land yet, think what you do like to plant and looking for the most suitable land as possible, including the thing of if the land is in a place where you can farm economically and you can sell your fruits and vegetables. If you have found land, you cannot choose the land. Examine its attributes, things like pH, as we're talking about, and what Kokoli helps with. Yes, there it is. So things like pH level, check attention to the weather, and the sun's move. Very interesting. Sun's move because you don't want a place where there's shade half the day.
Absolutely.
Yes, very interesting. And find the crops which are most suitable to grow on that land. Also, take note which things can harm your crops, fungi, animals. Make the soil, maintain the soil, make it best as you can. Very interesting. There's another one from a very good friend of mine, Susan Gishuhi. Susan Gishuhi says, I suggest that you follow American organic gardens like Justin Rhodes for tips and tricks. Secondly, get yourself some red wiggler worms to produce compost and vermiliquid, the vermicompost we're looking at.
Yeah.
And then the other one is from Wycliffe Namisi, who says, have enough manual stroke organic fertilizer to
Avoid using
inorganic fertilizers, have enough skills, knowledge
knowledge
to
and
organic.
very important.
Very important point.
Yeah.
Very important point. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Weekly, for those
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah.
We have been talking about organic farming, and this has been a very interesting morning. I told you all my days, all my mornings are very interesting. So always make sure that you are tuned in with us here. We are still regulating between 7:30 and 9:50, 9:30 in the morning. So it's time for our breakfast proverb. And our breakfast proverb today says, no matter how hot your anger is, it cannot cook yams. No matter how hot your anger is, it cannot cook yams. What does this mean? While anger can prompt a positive action that might resolve an issue, which is true, that the act of getting angry resolves nothing. So let's manage our anger. I mean, scenarios are there. It makes us angry as farmers. Even now, people are angry, asking themselves what is being done for us to be successful. But we want to always be positive and see the best ways of coping. Titus, your last words as we close.
My last word as we close is I want to tell farmers to continue practicing about the organic farming because it have its advantages and sometimes everything that is good have some side effects on it. and I can assure that the farmers that it's very possible to do this organic farming.
Fantastic. So thank you very much for having tuned in with us. Keep on watching, keep on following our social media handles, and you get to understand much more about what we do. And when we talk about helping you as a farmer connect, learn, and grow, that is our work. That is our mandate. We want to do this and much more. I've been told that I also need to mention that I've been dressed by Lily Adley Fashions today, and have a brilliant day.